I know you, Gemini, by your deep need for self-expression, by all your words, deeds, arguments, inventions, and all the results of your mind, energy, and skill. I know you by the swift, endless current of ideas that flow through time, by the importance of thought in man's evolving, and your knowledge that if the brain sleeps, the emotions can be fatal.
I have seen you, Gemini, quick with your hands, light on your feet, doing everything at once, easily, gracefully, swiftly, constantly in motion, mercurial, covering all the bases. Here one instant, gone the next.
I have heard you, Gemini, asking why, and getting your answers any way and anywhere you can. Shooting your quick darts of wit that hit their mark almost every time. Catching the rhythm of now with your snapdragon mind. Learning all the time. Always trying to understand everything at once.
Gemini, your word is intellect, from the Latin word ingenium, meaning genius.
If you believe a boss is a stationary object that doesn't leave his desk, if the only way you can operate is with a traditional set of rules and an employer who would rather do it himself, don't work for a Gemini. He talks staccato, thrives on chaos, and changes the orders while he's giving them. He'll turn your head inside out trying to keep up with him. And when he says, "Call me at the Paris office," then try London or the pub around the corner. Gemini is sharp and like sharp people. And if you can handle the unexpected, your day, your job, and your boss won't ever be dull. The twin is more of a mover than a leader, but you'll learn a great deal from watching him in action. One thing you may learn is just how bright you really aren't, 'cause he's the real thing.
If you're about to hire someone and you have in mind a specialist with a watchmaker head who will be satisfied with one spot on the dial, one pitch to make, and one way to make it. If an employee who appears to be perpetual motion and only has to hear 4 words to know what you want is not what you have in mind, don't hire a Gemini. This native needs space, stimulation, and speed. Too much detail, drudgery, and repetition will drive him or her up the wall. He can play any position in the field, and well, and while doing it can charm the crowd, con the umpire, and talk the opposition into making errors and striking out. You may have to listen to a lot of words, but you might hear one that will put your operation in the black. You catch a bright one when you hire a Gemini. What makes Gemini think? Mercury is the intellectual planet and charges the native's mind with electricity. It gives the twin native perception, so he receives suggestions and converts them into thought. This influence causes an obsession to understand and provides the mental equipment necessary to pursue the possibilities. Mercury is the messenger who brings Gemini the information.
What makes Gemini speak? Mercury rules the brain, the nervous system, and the tongue, all the channels through which the mind is expressed. So the native is effective when writing, affirming, and speaking.
What makes Gemini versatile? The planetary role of Mercury is that of communicator. All the influences of the planet are carried by the swift messenger, giving the native an ability to carry one or many suggestions at a time.
What makes Gemini? Speed. For Mercury is speed, and Mercury rules Gemini. Gemini, if your moon is in Aries, your naturally quick motion is intensified by the Aries fire, and you're not likely to remain in one place for long. You'll be conspicuous by your presence in many places. Many people will call you their friend. You will wander and acquire and be inclined to tire of things and people, always anxious to move on to new possibilities and experiences.
The twin, light as air, likes to fly. Taurus, earthbound, likes to dig in. So the Gemini moon in Taurus results in a more practical native who takes off with a flight plan and a reasonable destination, also providing him with a place to land. The capacity to reach with clear purpose and great energy often results in a touch of genius.
The sun in Gemini and the moon in Gemini indicates a sharp tongue, sure hands, and a short attention span. You're more inclined to scan the surface than to dig very deep into things. You're like this in your love affairs, believing that he who loves and runs away lives to love another day. Yours is a nervous life, but when your nerves are controlled, you can make big moves in most any direction you choose.
If you're the Gemini with your moon in Cancer, you're like an exposed nerve that tunes in on everything. And once you receive something, it's written in your memory forever. You live in a world of perpetual vibrations where the slightest negative can upset you far out of proportion. No matter where your talents may lead you, you will find contentment only in serene, peaceful places with feeling, loving people close by.
Gemini with the moon in Leo begins as a social lion. The early part of life, you are truly a personality kid with the accent on what people think and not on what you can do or can be. With time, however, you find more and more satisfaction in personal accomplishments than in social ones. When a balance between the two is accomplished, you make up for lost time in a hurry, and popularity and success is the result.
The twin with the Virgo moon lives in an emotional elevator and covers all the stories from the basement to the penthouse before you can ask, "Floor, please." Your problem is to zero in on one thing until you get it done. Your tendency is to hit and run. If you should decide to stick, you have a mind which catches on quick, and you can be a large plus in any undertaking.
Two air signs get happily together when the twin has its moon in Libra. If you're lucky enough to have this combination work for you, there's no roof over your dreams, no ceiling to restrain your optimism. You have a clear view of this moment and often the next, and you can be anywhere with ease and belong there. Yours is the life of infinite variety.
Oscar Wilde once proclaimed he could resist anything but temptation. Well, whatever made Oscar Wilde shows up when the Gemini moon is in Scorpio. Then the twin is a swinging, stinging native who takes his pleasure very seriously. You often have brilliance without ambition. The sensation of the moment is more important to you than the possible gratification of tomorrow. But if you ever pull the pieces together, you have the juice to make anything happen.
I shot an arrow into the air, it came to earth, I know not where. There you have a picture of the twins' moon in Sagittarius, the heir of Gemini and the archer's arrow. Not necessarily aimed, often shot for the fun of it. For the fun of it and the show of it. But people like to watch you and listen to you when you're on. And you know they do. You often use this fact to get where you're going.
There are good opportunists and bad ones. The Gemini moon in Capricorn produces a good one. The sure-footed determination of the goat gives direction and definition to the zigzag tendency of the twins. The quick Mercury eye sees and the steady Saturn goat pursues. Ambitions are achieved more by perspiration than inspiration. The native is a natural business success, shrewd and objective, but still respectful of human values.
With the moon in Aquarius, the twins' key word is originality. Your view of the world has dimension unavailable to most. The ability to see the reflection of the future in the mirror of the present is highly developed. Your understanding is instinctive, and your abilities creative. To know you is to learn, and yours is the gift of communication. You feel most significant when you are making others understand, feel, and grow.
The Gemini moon in Pisces makes a unique journey. This is the sign of the commonplace and the ordinary. All your journeys start down deep within yourself, for you are always searching there for answers. And while doing this, often forget that the external world has some answers too. Once you accept the outside world as also having value, you can use your self-knowledge to serve that world very well. Five is the halfway number between 1 the beginning and 9 the completion, and Gemini has a perfect view in both directions. 5 is the number of mediation, and Gemini's cool head and clear sight makes him the perfect mediator. 5 indicates agency or conveyor, and Mercury's twin is the Zodiac's #1 communicator. 5 is the number of movement, and the Geminian is a body and a mind constantly in motion. 5 is the indicator of vision and says what Gemini says, I think. Five fingers times 2, then double again. 5 senses times 2, also doubled again. These speak the many possibilities of Gemini.
Beryl is Gemini's stone and is extremely hard until it is touched with light. Then it captures a variety of colors, arranging them in geometric patterns and impressing a thing of beauty upon the eyes, communicating what it receives, as Gemini does. A beryl would be a sad stone if it had no colors to reflect, and a twin would perish if he had nothing to express. However, if you break down beryl to its essentials, it is beryllium and aluminum, 2 hard materials with no color or designs to show. And the twin has this to remind him that illusion is part of the picture, and without it, things can get pretty dull.
Color Gemini orange. As orange trees when it's time for picking, or the scent of blossoms when it's time for wearing. As orange as things most people have never heard of. basket worms, creepers, bats and berries. Orange as crowned warblers and fleabane, and daylilies and gourds, grass and gum and hawkweed. For Gemini will find them all and bring them home in a basket of words. Still, he has to be sure that he is not so weighed down with facts and words that dreams don't ever get going.
So Gemini, enjoy your 5 times 2 fingers and senses. Assemble all the colors of the sun. Reap your orange harvest of knowing and doing. But remember, it's good to know something and to do something. It's more important to be something.
In love, Gemini? Or aren't you sure? Is it love? Or a quiz show? Or a contest or a foot race? The moment you feel something, did you? But if you did, how come you're not sure? Or are you? This is the time when the mind is somehow not enough. But that's absurd. Isn't it always a case of mind over matter? If not, why not?
In love with a Gemini man, my girl? And you'd like to know where you stand. How can you when he doesn't know? But the thing is, he might. Then why keep it a secret? Or protest too much? Well, accept it. You're not in a love affair, but a house of mirrors or a funny farm. But it's more laughs, sometimes, than you ever knew you could have. And you know he has a burn for you. Well, he just called you long distance and talked for 2 hours and said he wanted to make it permanent. Well, he did say that, didn't he? Well, yes. And no.
In love with a Gemini girl, my man? Laughs, right? Well, then how come you're not laughing? You fascinate her, right? Well, then how come she keeps checking the room to see what new action is happening? She invites you in, then closes the door in your face. She thanks you for the roses, then tells you how much she likes orchids. She doesn't let you get a word in for the whole evening, then tells you what a brilliant conversationalist you are. You're a stranger in paradox, and you should run for your life, but oh, she's the most charming, witty, intelligent, swinging, attractive female you ever encountered. And she digs you. When you asked her to make it final, didn't she give you a 3-hour answer and say yes? Or was it no?
Out of love, Gemini? What did you do wrong? Or to put it another way, what did you do right? It was your fault. But she blew it. Or vice versa. Next time, have a little more faith in what you feel. An Aquarian or a Libra. Also, next time, really listen. She or he could be telling you something.
Gemini begins life in a hurry, as if he was shot out of a cannon. Make that 2 cannons. Seek him in heaven, seek him in hell, the elusive Scarlet Pimpernel. Well, wherever he turns up, you can be sure he'll be checking everything out. His compulsion is to know what everything is all about. When he finally stops his frantic rush for a moment, his tongue begins and out comes the whole story of what he's seen and learned and all the details. The twin loves to investigate and communicate. He has 2 hands and gets the maximum performance from each. He might even have 2 brains because his thought process never seems to sleep. The thing he has to make the world accept is that he can do more than one thing at a time, and do it well.
In his second season, the twin takes off in a great hurry to see a great many places and do a great many things, often too many. It's difficult to relate to one thing when you can appreciate so many. So Gemini finds himself establishing a touch-and-go pattern, where life is merely sampled or tasted without actually being assimilated. Variety may be the spice of life, but too many spices can play havoc with the digestion.
In the third season, the twin who has matured discovers the value of special achievement. The many facets of his talent take form, and a complete picture emerges. The intellect deepens and comes to grips with problems on a more significant basis. It is then this native makes his most important contribution and communicates the worth of knowledge and experience in its most active form.
In his last season, Gemini, surrounded by his books, his interests, his family, and a host of reverential friends, can take satisfaction in a life of many accomplishments. He will always have something in the enormous store of his mind and his reference to offer all who come within his circle. For Gemini, man and woman alike, to become is to inspire and influence. Theirs is that sense of fulfillment that comes from having made the world more aware than it was before they came along.
I believe that cosmic religious sense is one of the strongest and noblest motives behind scientific research. Albert Einstein. I hold it for certain that the celestial bodies have in them certain other influences besides heat and light. I have practiced astrology, and you have not. If I do not condemn it, how can you presume to do so? Sir Francis Bacon. It is the stars above us, governs our conditions. William Shakespeare. Ye stars, which are the poetry of heaven, in your bright leaves we would read the fate of men and empires. Lord Byron. Astrology is astronomy brought down to earth and applied to the affairs of man. Ralph Waldo Emerson. We of the fixed stars have rejected the message of the wanderers of the sky. Do they not tell us of things to come as well as of things long past, buried in the racial memory of man? Henry Miller. It is the very error of the moon. She comes more near to earth than she was wont, and makes men mad. From Othello by William Shakespeare. We are born at a given moment, in a given place. And like vintage years of wine, we have the qualities of the year and the season in which we are born. Astrology does not lay claim to anything more. Carl Jung.